Good morning, everyone. It's great to have you all with us. I'm John Ruston, Insights Director here at RFI Global, focused exclusively on our SME banking research. I'm joined by my colleague Joe Sharangpani, our Senior Insights Manager at RFI. It's a topic which we've sat very close to throughout both of our tenures at RFI, so we're very much looking forward to diving into some of our latest insights on UK SME banking today. Now, RFI is a data and insights partner to financial services companies globally, and we focus exclusively on financial services. We have ongoing studies within North America, within Europe, with the UK notably being a key market, within APAC as well. And we help financial institutions with their strategic objectives. We provide regular granular insights on key trends, but ultimately we help financial institutions navigate the fast changing landscape, which is financial services. The insights which we will be sharing today are derived from our 3 business programs that we have within the UK. Now, this is our UK SME banking program, our business payments program, and our merchant acceptance program. And together, they allow us to have a 360 view on the emerging trends and the key hot topics within SME banking within the UK. So within the session, we'll talk to 4 key themes and 4 hot trends which are facing SMEs at the moment, and the key opportunities to help essentially unlock UK SME growth moving forward. Now, I think we can all agree here on the call that it remains a very challenging time to be running a business. SMEs have faced unprecedented challenges, and that is something which has continued. Ultimately, we'll be looking at how these challenges are transitioning into everyday banking relationships for SMEs. And importantly, what are some of the key support mechanisms to put in place to help alleviate and overcome these pain points, but also develop compelling propositions and help untap that potential. Innovation is definitely at the forefront of what we'll be speaking about today, and we have continued to witness an acceleration towards digital channels. And we have reached a significant milestone within UK SME banking, which we will dive into in some great depth. And that leads us on to the role and importance ultimately of personalisation within SME banking. And I'll then pass over to my colleague Joe, who will dive into, given the plethora of options which are available to UK SMEs, how crucial it is at the moment to understand what that optimal service model looks like. And then we'll also be very excited to be sharing some of our latest insights on what undoubtedly is one of the hot topics in financial services at the moment, which is artificial intelligence. So here Joe will be diving into what business sentiment is towards use cases of AI in financial services, and also some of the own SMEs use cases and potential benefits. We'll also leave time at the end for any potential questions that we do have. Feel free to make use of the chat function and drop any questions in there. And we will circle back to them at the end of the session. But as I mentioned, we'll kickstart by looking at business sentiment and some of the top challenges that are facing SMEs at this present moment. Now, as I mentioned, and something at which we can all agree on, is that it remains a very challenging time to be running a business. And notably over the last 12 to 18 months in particular. As we entered 2024, we saw that the number of challenges that were facing SMEs increased significantly, and this has continued into 2025. So SMEs are now facing a wider array of challenges than they have done previously, and this is placing significant pressure on their ability to grow their sales and revenue. And we continue to see that tracking as the top challenge overall within the market. And now this is underpinned by 2 key trends, which I will draw your attention to on the slide. The first being increasing competition. Now, as we can see over the last 2 to 3 years, this has been steadily increasing as a top challenge for businesses. Now, this is particularly pertinent given the turbulent macroeconomic climate we're in, as SMEs face economic headwinds and notably rising costs and rising inflation when there are cost of living pressures. SMEs are ultimately jostling for the wallets of consumers, and this is particularly pertinent within B2C businesses, but we do see amid circumstances such as that we're in at the moment, the increasing competition becomes more of a pertinent challenge for SMEs. The other factor, which will be a continual thread as we move throughout the session, will be that factor on towards the right-hand side there, which is keeping up with evolving technological advancements. Now, this has reached the top 5 challenges for the first time within the UK. Now, of course, artificial intelligence is at the center of this. And as I mentioned, Joe, a bit later on within the session, we'll be diving into some of the key details here, what this looks like for an SME. But again, this is again helping SMEs navigate some of their key expectations with regards to digital is something which is going to be of fundamental importance, and putting those roadblocks and those pillars in place presents a key opportunity for financial institutions to continue turning the dial moving forward. As I mentioned, it's important to understand how some of these pain points are transitioning into everyday banking relationships. So as we move on to the next slide, here we are looking at the top pain points that an SME experiences within their most important banking relationship. So the first key takeaway, which I'll draw your attentions to on the slide, is that as we've entered 2025, similarly as we discussed on the previous slide with regards to the overall challenges that an SME faces, the number of pain points that a business is experiencing has also increased. Now, some of these notable pain points we draw your attention towards innovation in digital banking. So we mentioned that innovation remains a top challenge for businesses. So it's ever more crucial to put those support pillars in place to help navigate, which is a fast-moving landscape for businesses. And this has remained a pain point since 2024. Also, importantly and crucially, and something which is a key trend, which we're talking a lot about at RFI at the moment, is the role of proactivity in providing advice. And as we can see also, we've highlighted on the slide that 50% of SMEs state that they are dissatisfied with the level of proactivity that they receive from their main bank. Now, essentially, when we talk about what proactivity looks like, it's the ability to be able to demonstrate a strong knowledge of the business, essentially to be able to reach out to the business with the right products, the right solutions, via the right channel at the right time to really help and facilitate their trajectory. So you're providing solutions which can help scale with the business at the right time. So you're creating, and something we'll talk about as well here throughout the session, will be the role of personalization within SME banking. So really creating that unique and personalized customer experience. So embedding yourself and essentially creating that strategic partnership. And this brings us onto one of the key threads which we can see through the slide, which I'm sure you can all recognize, is that role of commitment to the business's long-term growth. So as you can see from going back over the last 2 to 3 years, this has been a pain point for SMEs and continues to be something which is unresolved. So it remains a key opportunity to continue solidifying relationships and alleviate key pain points for businesses. But essentially, what do we mean by commitment to the business's long-term growth? Now, when we've spoken a lot about this at RFI, there's definitely been a hypothesis that it's intrinsically related to access to credit or access to finance. And this will continue to be the case. However, when we move on to the next slide, we will start to see that the picture is changing. And we've got here essentially the top factors that a business cites when we're talking about commitment to long-term growth. Essentially, what does this mean to a business? And we've got here on the slide and illustrating this, how this changes by the different profile and the different size of business. We've also mapped this against access to finance and lending, essentially show how that is evolving as again the landscape changes with the business size. So we're starting to see, as I mentioned, that picture is changing, and commitment to growth means more than just access to finance alone. So we still see it within the top 3 for some of those smaller businesses. So of course, access to that capital, to that working capital for business to help manage their short-term cash flow, for example, remains and will continue to remain vital. However, we are starting to see that proactivity in providing advice, as we've spoken about, so being able to provide the right solutions at the right time, And how those solutions then scale with the business is the real key to being able to demonstrate that commitment to long-term growth. So being able to provide quality advice through a proactive advisory, through innovative digital solutions, having the right range of products and the right elements of sector expertise, and attaching those capabilities as the businesses scale is the key in strengthening relationships and is the key factor in being able to demonstrate that commitment to long-term growth and help to untap their potential moving forward. Now, a continual theme which we see on this slide is the role of innovation within digital banking. And as I mentioned, we've continued to witness a fast acceleration towards digital, and we have reached, as I mentioned, a significant milestone within UK SME banking, and this is it. So if I just draw your attention towards the top two, the red and the blue lines on the chart. So as we moved into 2024, we saw that mobile banking apps overtook online banking as the most used channel on a weekly basis for the first time. And this is a trend that has continued into 2025 and is only something that we would expect to continue moving into 2026 and beyond. So we can safely say in a UK SME banking landscape that we are in a mobile first environment. So it really is key that the propositions do evolve to keep pace with those emerging and those growing expectations. Now, this has been fueled by, I would say, the excellent competition that we see within the market. SMEs now have a plethora of options available to them. And as we move through onto the next slide, we can see that this has definitely been underpinned by that healthy competition, particularly from a digital perspective. And another notable insight that we can share, and as part of our latest round of insights in 2025, is that 1 in 2 SMEs now hold a product with a fintech. And there are definitely some parallels which we can draw from this top slide that we can see here, from that trend from 2019 to 2025. There's definitely some similarities between fintech usage and mobile banking usage. So we can definitely see that mobile banking usage has been propelled by the competition that we're seeing from a fintech and alternative provider perspective. Also, the traditional providers have also upped their game from a digital propositions perspective. And again, the range of options which are now available to SMEs are more substantial than they have done previously. And again, the key levers which are pulling an SME towards a fintech are overall around the ease of banking, the quality of digital in particular, and digital capabilities, seamless application processes, and a perception that there is a greater level of innovation as well. So as we saw, that was a common pain point for SMEs to be able to keep pace with those expectations is something which is crucial. And particularly as we are in a mobile first environment and mobile first landscape now, it's crucial to evolve those propositions with the business's expectations. So what are those key pillars and key opportunities from a mobile banking perspective? What are those key opportunities to win with SMEs within a mobile first environment moving forward? Now, as we can see, SMEs are looking to conduct a greater range of tasks via mobile banking. So some of the non-negotiables, which we would say, which we do see within mobile now, are the ability to create, send and track invoices. SMEs are looking to conduct more of their accounting tasks via mobile, for example. However, one standout theme is particularly striking, which is the role of personalisation. So as SMEs are looking to conduct more of their tasks, they are looking to have a more personalised customer experience. So we can see that is desired by over 1 in 2 SMEs within the UK. They cite that they want a greater level of personalisation from their mobile banking apps. And opportunities exist to execute on that personalisation through tailored product recommendations, also having personalized interfaces, but also personalized business insights. So relevant to an industry that a business might be operating in, or relevant to the life cycle that they're in at the moment, or they're on a fast scale up trajectory. Some of those best practice tips and tricks that go beyond banking and beyond those transactional types of relationships. And one notable point as well is that SMEs now view their mobile app as the gateway to their wider financial relationship. So being in that mobile first environment, it really is a tool to connect with other channels, whether that's starting product applications via mobile, and transitioning to an online if they have to submit certain types of documentation, but also with the ability to connect with relationship managers or with staff. So really using that as the first port of call and the gateway to the wider financial ecosystem. And at this point, I'll pass over to my colleague Joe, who will then touch upon in more depth how this relates to the optimal service model.
Amazing. Thank you very much, John. And yes, just to reiterate things from earlier, thank you everyone for joining, and I will pick it up from here. So, as John mentioned, there are a number of different factors on this slide, but the overarching theme is very much around personalization. But the one point I wanted to add, aside from how it's always nice seeing some payment related attributes in there for me, is just how complex some of these aspects can actually be, particularly when we look at things such as personalized business insights, tailored product suggestions, or accounting software integration. These are aspects and features which are exceptionally unique to an SME. Even two SMEs of the same size in the same industry could have quite notably different experiences and notably different needs with their mobile banking app. And so with this, if we consider, one, the wide variety of tasks, the wide variety of challenges a business should face, and also, as John mentioned, the litany of options of how to interact with financial services providers, this takes us on to us understanding the optimal service model. And there's often been a heavy discussion around an omni-channel approach, but we would propose that actually what is needed is an opti-channel approach. So being able to blend digital and personal channels to really seamlessly work together to demonstrate that deep understanding of needs. Understanding of needs being another key theme for today. But what we're looking at here then is which methods businesses would most prefer for each of these activities. And even though there's only a couple of data points here, we do actually see some quite unique and quite interesting factors. For instance, when we look at things such as opening business accounts or taking out a new credit card, we do see there that online banking, yes, it is still the number one factor. Credit cards, we can see there mobile apps often become are notably more important than the personal channels. Often this will be because a business will generally look towards a provider they already have a relationship with for their first credit card, or again, they may be expanding that relationship with a provider they've used for quite a while. Elsewhere, though, for instance, opening a business account, we see that personal touch can be quite needed because for a lot of businesses, especially at the very small end of the SME scale, they might just be getting started. This might be their first business account that they are opening. And of course, there are a lot of instances in the market now where you can take out a business account while simultaneously registering and dealing with all the administrative challenges that a business faces. As that business grows and the product requirements do get a bit more complicated there, we can see the loan applications, yes, the personal touch is definitely preferred. And looking for product information is still quite digital, as it is what we would call a relatively simple and straightforward task. But the one there that I haven't spoken about is seeking advice regarding business banking. And John mentioned earlier around commitment to growth, the need for proactive advice, and how a lot of SMEs are currently dissatisfied with the advice they are receiving. I would extend this preference to not just business banking, but the wider landscape. And what we are really seeing with commitment to growth is that SMEs want providers to better understand their business, to give those personalized recommendations, and to give effective advice. So if we want to know what SMEs want providers to understand better, we can actually look here into the acquiring space. And looking now at card accepting SMEs specifically, we do see there that number one factor across the market is that improved ability to resolve issues with card acceptance. Yes, unsurprising considering for a lot of these businesses, card acceptance will account for around 50% of their revenue. Any issue with those solutions does need to be resolved very, very quickly. But elsewhere, outside of this top factor, what this slide really shows is a very good illustration of the life cycle of an SME. So for instance, if we look at under 500,000 there, we see aspects such as an in-depth knowledge of the industry, SMEs with up to 250,000. In some cases, they may still be working out their place within a particular industry. We see the economic and regulatory challenges, perhaps as a business moves away from perhaps being a sole trader into a limited company. But the one thing that both these under 500,000 businesses clearly do have in common there is that understanding of who the business's customers are and who their target market is. This is a very, very important factor for SMEs, and they really do want financial institutions to show that they understand that in depth. Now, as we start going further up in terms of size, yes, the 500,000 to 1 million, products change, markets may change, diversity of products, especially of what they're offering to customers, may change, as well as banking. That's where we do start to see those customers becoming quite important, because to really get from the psychological milestone of 500,000 to 1 million, you really do have to have a firm understanding of your end customer. And this is all things that SMEs want acquirers to better understand. But even once we get into the 7-8 figure range, it becomes even more complex, and it shows that SMEs want acquirers to have an even deeper understanding of their business. For instance, there are the 1 million to 10 million range. We have banking product availability or suitability, and indeed the range of acceptance products currently held. We know that in this range, this is where we do start to see international operations become more common. So really, we're trying to create that unified approach to acceptance, a holistic view of the payments ecosystem. And this gets even more pronounced in the 8-figure range of 10 to 50 million. There we can see there, yes, we have the supply chains, which is about as paramount to a business's operation as it can be, but also there how we reconcile transaction data with external software. And this leads us nicely back round to what John was talking about earlier about the importance of digital services, and especially the importance of the mobile app. So when we then ask SMEs, what do you want improved in acquiring relationships? And I'm actually going to draw your attention to more the right-hand side than the left side for now. Overall, all of these features have been quite common over the last couple of years. But one notable factor there are the reporting and data analytics tools. So really, SMEs want to use data. They understand the importance and the value it can bring, and they want to be able to have that seamless overview of data within their financial relationships. Another factor here, we can see there the clarity and the simplicity of interface for the mobile app, which has been prominent over the last couple of years, and indeed the greater range of tasks, where yes, we have said there via computer or mobile app, but I think when we look at this presentation as a whole, I think it's safe to say that the mobile app is definitely where businesses would be looking here more so than the online landscape. And the first one there, I of course have to mention it, the real-time overview of incoming and outgoing payments, essentially having full transparency and a 360 view of a business's payments ecosystem. And in case you're wondering, is this unique to businesses just in relation to acquiring and merchant acceptance? Well, the answer is no. It is also the number one factor, excuse me, for cardholders as well. And this does extend to broad businesses when you are asking specifically about payments. So as a whole, if we're looking at what can really be improved in digital relationships, yes, the real-time overview is key. The ability to have a diverse range of tasks on a mobile app while maintaining simplicity is also key. But then we also have a very important factor that SMEs want to make better use of the data that is available to them. And well, if we're thinking about all of these digital improvements, especially in relation to payments, this leads us on to our final section here, driving future innovation through payments and AI. And we've spoken a little bit already about innovation through payments, but let's have a look specifically at what SMEs think about artificial intelligence. And on the left-hand side there, this is asking from a future view, do you believe that AI will be a greater benefit or threat to the business? And as you can see there quite clearly, the number of SMEs that do expect it to be a greater benefit than threat is increasing rapidly over the last 2 years. And actually, we have received some interim data for the second half of this year, and I can say this number is continuing to increase. This 53% at the moment is sitting at around, say, 65-70%. So it is still increasing more and more and more. But we'll come back to that in case we want to know a bit more about what businesses are using AI for. Do reach out to us after this session. But taking it away from just internal to the business and looking at how comfortable they are with AI replacing interaction in financial services. So going back to what we were talking earlier, yes, there is still a personal touch that is very much required, but actually SMEs are quite comfortable with AI replacing that human interaction. 75% or so there are at least somewhat comfortable with the idea. Now, I do not want to oversell that. I absolutely will highlight that this does come with some risks, but what it does just show is that if used in the right way, if we are able to truly blend that digital and personal touch when it does come to servicing, then SMEs would be quite receptive to that. Again, just to reiterate, absolutely not saying that AI could do everything in financial services customer service, but there is definitely a notable place for it. And I mentioned about the risks and concerns with the development of AI, but what do SMEs actually see as being some of those potential concerns? Excuse me. As some of these would be things that we would generally expect to see, such as job displacement, the ethical concerns about manipulation, that perhaps it could be quite difficult to find the expertise. But there are two factors here at either end of this chart that I think really show how the market is moving. One, cost, as a big concern about it being expensive to develop and implement, has seen a slight decline year on year, and I believe it is continuing to decline a little bit more as of the second half of this year, whereas data security and privacy is now that number one concern. So what does this actually really mean? Well, we believe that this is showing that SMEs are actually, one, seeing how AI can be successfully implemented in the business, but also they are having a better understanding of what some of the, let's say, true risks and true concerns around, say, data security are, especially compared to 2 years ago when AI was very much in its, let's say, public infancy, if you like. But the other part here, as I'm sure you've probably noticed by now, that call out in the top right, the proportion that say, no, we don't have any concerns with that development has nearly tripled over the last 18 months to 2 years or so. So overall, yes, there are still some concerns, but they are becoming less prominent, especially when we compare them to what some of the biggest perceived benefits of AI development are. And what we see here when we look across the different sizes of SMEs is that yes, there is quite a fair amount of variation in what those top benefits are. Overall, increasing sales, reducing costs, yes, they are the key factors. But actually, if we look, say, especially at the large end of the scale there, 1 million plus, it is actually around that improved operational efficiency. So rather than just a general, yes, we think it will help us grow, or we think it will be more profitable, it's actually really diving deep into the nitty gritty, if you like, of how these businesses operate. And that's where the million plus businesses see AI as being a benefit. And the last point here that I will just round off before we recap for today is thinking right back to the very first slide we saw about how increasing competition is one of SME's key challenges in the UK. You may have noticed there that a top 5 challenge for those SMEs with under 1 million, i.e. the majority of SMEs in the UK, that competitive advantage that AI brings is seen as one of the biggest potential benefits. And with that then, I will just round off with some of the key takeaways today. And first and foremost, I think if you do take one thing away from today's session, it is around the commitment to long-term growth. It is not just around access to finance. It is around a true solution that scales actively with their business and a provider that can give proactive advice on how to help scale that business, coupled with increasing levels of digital innovation, which again, you may remember earlier, outside of commitment to growth, was also a very big and growing pain point and growing challenge within the SME landscape. So in short, commitment to growth needs to be about really understanding the business's life cycle and providing those correct solutions at the right time. And what some of these solutions and channels are, this leads us to those middle 2 points. Yes, the mobile app personalization really is going to be paramount moving forward. SMEs absolutely are viewing it as the gateway to their broader relationship. And well, speaking anecdotally, the only time I have used online banking rather than a mobile app in the last 5 years was to download bank statements for a mortgage application. That is it. I have not used online banking for anything else in the last 5 years. And if you think about it this way, if I was going to start a business tomorrow, I would be looking for banks with a good, solid mobile app rather than the online banking. And this will be true for the Gen Z and Gen Alpha business owners of tomorrow. But that is not to say that we are purely digital. We do need to have that omni-channel approach because it does drive that relationship beyond products towards an active partnership, again helping develop this idea of commitment to long-term growth, but also it is always nice to have that personal touch because some things fundamentally are so much simpler to speak about in person than to have a purely digital means of operation. But when we think about the future of all of this operation and the innovations that come with it, AI definitely does have that potential to revolutionize SMEs operations, both with financial solutions and with, say, their own external customer facing solutions as well. But even though there are concerns, the willingness to use and develop these solutions is growing rapidly. And a little bit of a spoiler for some of our data for the end of this year, it does look like it is continuing to grow as well. Okay, and with that, I just want to say firstly, again, just a reminder, this data is a collation from our three core business products there of banking, payment, and merchant acceptance. And if there is any more information that you would like around what we look at, how we look at it, or any of the core details of the study, please do feel free to reach out, as this is very much the tip of the iceberg. But with that, I would just like to say again, thank you very much for listening, and I will pass back over to John, as I believe he's got the Q&As open. So John, over to you.